Mr. President, very good to be here with you in these palatial surroundings of Simon Bolivar's home. And referring to Simon Bolivar always reminds one of Hugo Chavez, who popularized him throughout the world. So this is the first time I've been in Caracas since he died and since your election. And there's a feeling of sadness, but also a feeling of happiness that there's continuity going on. How do you feel?
Well, being at this place has a symbolic nature, symbolic power of the times our homeland is going through. This is like a sanctuary to us. This is the place where Simon Bolivar was born and lived his early childhood. He lived his historic time. He turned it into a project. And he made it a future project. This is the original project that was picked by President Chavez. Other people in the 19th century and the 20th century tried to take up the flag of Simon Bolivar in various epochs. There were struggles that never ended. It is Hugo Chavez, when the original project of Simon Bolivar was retaken and was transformed into a people's project and leads to victory. The roads to victory of Simon Bolivar's projects were resumed with Hugo Chavez.
Why do you think that the Venezuelan right-wing opposition is so violent, so extreme, that they systematically refuse to recognize a democratic election?
In 15 years of revolution, we had 19 elections, and the revolution has won 18 of such elections, which is a world record. And the gap has been varying, changing from one occasion to the other, and we have constructed a solid majority based on principles, on social and economic achievements, both domestically and internationally. Yet the oligarchy in Venezuela is the heir of counter-values that ruled the country during the colonial times. It has also conveyed a superiority complex, a supremacist feeling. They feel that they are over and above the people. They haven't understood and respect the majority that was built by President Chavez. Unfortunately, they have a very close link, a very close dependence on the elites ruling the United States. They are not a national a political opposition. It is a right-wing opposing the democratic revolutionary project in direct link with the elites of the United States. They do not have any national plan. They have incubated hatred, despise for the people, what some people call social racism, which is the despise of the majorities. And where do majorities come in Venezuela? Where do we come from? We are the descendants of the enslaved Africans, the descendants of the originary indigenous peoples. We are the descendants of the poor Spaniards that were exploited as well, and the descendants of mestizos, of mulattoes. We are the combination of the struggles of 500 years. We are the descendants of the exploited ones of yesterday. They still regard us with despise, with hatred.
What, in your opinion, are the most important problems still confronting Venezuela, which have to be dealt with rapidly?
The main issue in the revolution now is the development of an economic model that is based on production, that is socialist, that is modern, with a high investment in technology, articulating new engines for development. This is the main issue for the next 10 and 20 years, or 20 years. It transcends the current conjuncture. The economic transition is the hardest one, the toughest one. The transition to socialism, I mean, because all aspects related to the social model, we are very successful. We have been successful in fighting poverty, in enshrining the public education with equality, as well as healthcare, free education, social security, eliminating unemployment and improving employment. So, I mean, the social model has been very successful. We are in that connection, or in that realm, 3 steps ahead. The political model has also been very successful. It's been the model of open, free, participatory democracy. In terms of international integration, regional integration, we got ALBA, UNASUR, CELAC. So the big task we got at hand now is the development of that new model and overcoming the wounds that were left by the model that based our development on oil revenues. We had 100 years being a new colony, a new oil colony. It's been very hard to get out of that model, and this is what we need to do.
If we turn now to the international situation, a few days ago you greeted the President of China on a state visit to Venezuela. What importance do you attach to this politically and economically?
That is one of the main achievements of the revolution in 15 years. A country like Venezuela opening relations with China was unthinkable. I mean, it was unthinkable to establish relationships with the emerging powers in the world. This is the legacy today of President Chavez, a legacy we have taken and that we are developing. Our relations with China had been increased, had been raised to the category of a comprehensive strategic alliance. That means that we are going to add new topics for common development, for joint development. China has a virtue. China has become a superpower in the 21st century. Yet, it had not intended to become an empire to dominate humankind. Maybe in the history of humankind, it would be the first case of an emerging superpower that has no imperial project, without any imperial appetite to colonize, to dominate others. So our relationship with China is a mutual respect on egalitarian basis. We got important joint investment projects that have allowed that joint funds. We have invested in Venezuela $56 billion in 6 years alone. We have cooperation agreements in the realm of technology, for instance, that has allowed Venezuela to have the first 2 satellites for telecommunications and for observation. We are going to launch a 3rd satellite. We got joint infrastructure and facilities projects for the construction of towns, of villages, of housing projects. And we are going to add some cultural projects as well. Politically speaking, we got permanent communication at the highest level, high-level visits. After the visit of President Xi Jinping, there is a new stage opening in the relationships with China. And with the relationship of China with Latin America and the Caribbean, is going to consolidate our ideas, which is the construction of a multi-centric pluripolar world for relations oriented towards prosperity internationally.
But the United States is going to be irritated by this. They are not going to like it. And as you know, they are in a global imperial power, which will do everything to win South America back, to make it their backyard, as they used to say. And how is that going to be resisted? It can't just be resisted by one country, but by a collection of countries. Do you think this is something which could become permanent?
The world today definitely taking a new shape. It is a world where countries and regions are emerging, are rising with driving forces of their own. What Venezuela is today is not owed to anyone in the world, but to the efforts, the domestic efforts of the Venezuelan people. What Latin America is today, with UNASUR, with SALAC, with ALBA and Petrocarib, all those new regional organizations that have helped us constitute a bloc, is the result of the effort of the union in diversity of Latin America and the Caribbean. What China is today is the outcome of decades of work. We are not paper tigers, as Mao Zedong used to say. We are steel tigers. We are rising in our desire to grow, to live peacefully, and to have the right to be independent, women and men. It is the dream of various generations, and the historic time has come for this dream to become true.
The dollar remains the dominant currency, still used as a measure by the whole world. And this aspect of the American empire, monetary control, has not yet been broken. So we have this absurd situation where a court in New York decides what the Argentinian government should do. What is the hope in the next 10, 20 years of breaking the stranglehold of the dollar?
It was not like that all the time, that way, I mean. Just not that way all the time. It is today like this because since Bretton Woods agreements, a financial system and a monetary system in the world was constituted to benefit those who took the lead of world capitalism, the United States particularly. By eliminating the gold patent by Richard Nixon, we had these dollars printing machines, and other speculation mechanisms were implemented through the debt, through the foreign debt, and other mechanisms to dominate the entire world. There is a reaction today vis-à-vis that situation, and there are new mechanisms. In Latin America, we have the Sucre, which is a modest monetary system that has shown to be viable at small scale at the beginning, at an early stage, but it can reach the whole continent in the future. The BRICS countries have created a development bank with $100 billion. They have also created a reserves fund, and they are now creating mechanisms for exchange of national currencies. So we got new mechanisms that are being born. And the powers of the economies will eventually determine unavoidably the emergence of a new world system. In this connection, Latin America must also spearhead this process as well. For instance, in Venezuela, part of our reserves are in renminbi, which is yuans, the yuans, Chinese yuans. We are investing in yuans. We are trading with China in yuans. Those are the first steps to democratize the international monetary system, so that it is not used as a speculation mechanism to submit the people to well, as they are intending to do with Argentina again.
I think a few weeks ago, the South American Pope in the Vatican came out and made an astonishing statement for a Pope in which he said he was opposed to land speculation and to property speculation. What was your opinion on that?
Pope Francis I has always upheld, and particularly now in his capacity as a Pope, very clear positions about how unfair the world economic system and the world financial system is. How unfair it is that a headline on speculation, on financial speculation, is more important than a headline on hunger, on famines, affecting people anywhere in the world, including Europe. So he has expressed hard statements against neoliberalism. In this connection, he represents, or he's expressing, an ethical tradition which is a part of the Latin American Christian thinking that has put into question these mechanisms to ransack the countries and to submit the countries. We always keep our ears wide open to hear Pope Francis. It is extraordinary that he is guiding humankind today in its search of new values to overcome the failed and broken financial and speculation capitalist system.
Coming to another issue in world politics, the last time the Israelis attacked Gaza, President Chavez and President Morales broke off relations immediately, unlike the elites in the Arab world or Turkey. And that had a huge impact that these two Latin American countries had done it. Now with the latest attack on Gaza, and even as we speak, massacres taking place, Ecuador has broken off relations. How do you explain the fact that South America has become so global, international, and internationalist over the last 20 years?
Well, a deep, sensitive human project has risen again, which is the Bolivarian project that has encouraged the revolutions that are transforming the Latin American continent now. This allowed us a new approach to the world, and we have taken on the denunciation of the imperial crimes, no matter where they are committed. And with denunciation to raise awareness around the world amongst our peoples. The awareness of the peoples, the conscience of the peoples are the ones who eventually are the ones who are going to build a new society. The peoples have the strength enough to change humankind, and we need to continue changing humanity. The crimes that have been committed by the elite ruling Israel are hateful. They have terrified the humankind at large. So we must keep on denouncing this. The United Nations Human Rights Council have made a very important statement today condemning the occupying power and opening an inquiry about this. As the Human Rights Council of the United Nations against those who are committing these crimes against civil population of the Palestinian people in Gaza. They have killed boys, girls, children. This is unheard of. I have insisted from Venezuela, from the Bolivarian and Venezuela, the homeland of Chavez, to make a call to the Jewish people around the world so that they stop the massacre of their government. And a second call to the Arab peoples and the governments of the Arab League. It is the Arab League, the one that needs to lead in the United Nations and around the world this proposal for a ceasefire so that the Palestinian people are respected, that the bombings are stopped, that the elite ruling in Israel are condemned. There must be a single general voice. The Arab peoples suffering side by side with the Palestinian people, there must be a single voice amongst the Arab world. They were very effective against Gaddafi on its moment, based on a lie that the Green Square had been bombed, and they authorized the bombing of Libya. And what is Libya today? Who controls Libya today? Different terrorist parties are the ones controlling that. So we must oppose the imperial system intending to control our peoples. And what is happening in Palestine is one of the most horrendous crimes against humankind in this early 21st century.
It's an interesting contrast that in the United States this week, first the House of Representatives and then the Senate voted unanimously for Israel to defend it in whatever it does. At the same time, the discussion in the United Nations General Assembly shows that most countries are opposed to what Israel is doing. But the Security Council is deaf to what the General Assembly feels or what the people feel. Do you think we need a different type of organization? We need a democratic United Nations?
Well, in the United Nations, in the Human Rights Council in Geneva, when the resolution was voted condemning these crimes and opening an inquiry and calling for a ceasefire, the only vote against was the United States vote. Fortunately, there is no veto power applicable within the framework of the United Nations Human Rights Council. At the Security Council in New York, 58 countries have made statements in the Security Council. They have asked for the floor, even though some of them are not members of the Security Council, so that a resolution be passed ordering Israel to stop the bombings and the massacre, and adopting measures to guarantee life and security of the Palestinian people. Yet, the United States has enforced its veto power within the Security Council. That's why there are conversations with the Arab League and other bodies to call for a United Nations General Assembly, so that the General Assembly makes the decision in this particular case. This is one of the alternatives that are being discussed. Generally speaking, from the strategic point of view, it is necessary to undertake the transformation of the whole United Nations system, to adapt it to this historic time. The United Nations system that was born after the Second World War must adapt to the new needs that have emerged in the world history, and it must prevent one country to enforce a veto power in complicity in these crimes against children, against women, against hospitals. The destruction of 50 mosques is incredible. I mean, they are sacred places. Now, humankind need to respond. We need a large and great mobilization of human consciousness in order to promote and achieve these changes, considering this massacre that is being committed by the elite ruling Israel against the Palestinian people.
President, we are witnessing now an interesting and disturbing new trend in the countries of the Western world which describe themselves as democracies. That in most of these countries, you have an increasing authoritarianism, that there is no real alternative offered to the people in terms of the mainstream political parties, and the strength of the media, Western media, in defending the system has become so brutal that anything that challenges it is savagely attacked. Whereas in Venezuela in particular, we have seen the opposite trend of more democratization, not less. And from that point of view, ultimately, there will have to be a struggle in the Western world to defend democratic rights against capitalism. And there are lessons for that for the rest of the world.
Well, generally, domination systems have been established in many countries where the mass media have a key role or play a key role to impose the values and the agenda and the interests of those dominating the world as well. So mass media is the device, the mechanism to disseminate and validate the agenda of those ruling elites. In this case, in the North, in the United States and Europe, this society is being ruled by financial capitalism. It has total power over the economy. It is no longer industrial or commercial capitalism, it is financial capitalism. They own the mass media, which set culture and opinion in the northern countries and to spread it from there to the rest of the world. So in the realm of media battle, of the cultural battle for a new world, it is essential to open new mechanisms and devices for communication through social media, through direct communication, and also through stations like the ones we are opening today with you, teleSUR English. It was President Chavez who took on the concept and the project of teleSUR. Let me show you this book, The South Commission, that was made by Julius Nyerere, who was president of Tanzania, and then he was entrusted with the projects of the South. This book was read by President Chavez while he was in jail in 1992. And this book that has been marked and annotated by President Chavez, he took the conscience, he became aware of the importance of the projects of the South, how in the South we could construct a new world, materially, spiritually, subjectively, and new instruments and mechanisms that were necessary. Then he developed the idea of these projects of the South, and he never stopped talking about the necessity of projects for the South, from the South to the South. And that's how teleSUR Spanish was born. teleSUR Spanish is something great. And now is teleSUR English being launched. In the coming years, we will see teleSUR Portuguese, teleSUR French, teleSUR Mandarin, teleSUR Arabic. I mean, it means open spaces for the truth. I am positive that with the increase of the rise of awareness around the world, all these projects and this articulation of all these alternative media, a new world, a new society will be consolidated. We will be making a crack in the wall of the media dictatorship of financial capitalism in the world.
President, are you confident that the Bolivarian project in Venezuela will continue?
It has continued already. President Chavez created forces beyond his lifetime. Spiritual forces, spiritual strength. He gathered the people around the love for our homeland. He resuscitated Bolivar. And you see now in Venezuela, the Bolivar boy, the Bolivar girl, the Bolivar woman, the Bolivar man. Who is it? The same man, Chavez, the boy Chavez, the girl Chavez, the woman Chavez. This is a project for the independence of Venezuela, the Bolivarian independence, for the Latin American socialism, our Indo-American, as President Chavez used to call it, a socialism encompassing all dimensions to reivindicate human beings. He left his strength, his spirit, his mind, and his people. Our destiny, the destiny of our people, is victory.
One question I must put to you. It still remains a very divided society, that the oligarchs and the rich still command support amongst the masses. And this has been going on now for nearly 20 years. How do you explain their hold over sections of the masses, over ordinary people?
It is two worlds. The worlds that have been left behind and the world that has emerged and that is lying ahead as well. Past and future, capitalism and socialism, that somehow or other shared and became pillars of the domination system that existed in Venezuela before. And they have political spaces today. They got, with this democracy, open democracy we got, guaranteed their public expression. They got plenty of funds from within and from abroad the country. So, but we aspire that the space is not based on intolerance, on no fascist intolerance or hate. We hope that they base their space on respect to the irreversible project of the Bolivarian Revolution. We hope that their dependence on the U.S. elites also gets reduced and that we got a real Venezuelan opposition. It will continue to exist. However, the future society, the society of the future, will continue to consolidate. Many people did not bet anything on the revolution after President Chavez would die. Once he passed away, however, the revolution has continued. Why? Because it has engines of its own driving forces, its own life. The revolution continues because it does not depend on a man that is leading it now. That's why it has become irreversible. And that's why we keep on consolidating it day in, day out. It's a permanent struggle, a lively, dynamic, and dialectic struggle. And that's why this socialist revolution in the 21st century is so beautiful.
President, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.